I got one last comment, and I'm wondering what you think about it. So, I went back to Hannah Arendt recently again after almost finishing her complete works, and she has this great line in The Origin of Totalitarianism, and she said that she sort of changed the wording of Dostoevsky. Dostoevsky said that if God is dead, everything is permissible, and she said, observing totalitarianism, that if God is dead, then everything is possible. Anything can happen. So it seems to me that this is strange torsion that's going on in her thought. At the same time, she celebrates this natality, this endless possibility that we talked about, that is the divine. But also, she also shrinks from horror in this sense of everything is possible when God is dead, or when everything is possible, when there is no constraint to the endless processes, this endless creation that human beings can do. And for example, of ecological catastrophes right now, or even, I guess, other political situations that we can see here, it is this creation that is both divine but also absolutely malign and destructive.
I
Would
think
you
that's
agree with this?
I think there's a very interesting idea at work here, because I would definitely agree with the idea that if God is dead, then you remove the constraint. But I don't necessarily think that removing the constraint leads to anything new to occur, because in the last philosophy discussion I was having with a few kids at school, I said, well, we got into discussion about, well, existentialism, God, and, well, what exactly happens when you get rid of God? You get rid of the culture and the traditional idea of constraints. You got a blank slate, but then you say, well, what do you put on that blank slate? Every time you raise a blank slate, you always inevitably almost end up back at where you started with your culture and your tradition. So I think that what you do see is that, yes, metaphysically, everything is possible. You lose the constraint. But the question is, do people actually use that new freedom to escape the constraint? Most people do not, and then turn to despotism. And that's the idea that you've gotten rid of the constraint with unlimited freedom. I get unlimited despotism. You get rid of that constraint, and then you go back to the tradition, you go back to the culture, then you twist it in such a way that it becomes very tyrannical and very, very dangerous.
Mhm. I think that's also her point about Nazism and Stalinism. What she said is they're actually uh, the logic, the inner logic, is very similar to this kind of scientific logic in our age, as in there's the idea for both of, I think you're right here, of both fending off all possibility in the sense that there's one problem either with the Jews or with the bourgeoisie, and once we solve that problem, a paradise will come at the end. A state, a utopian state, will arrive once we've just gotten rid of this thing. Perhaps diagnosing the problem scientifically, we can go straightforwardly from state A to state B, whereas that's never what happens in human situations. But instead, there's always this constant lurking of possibility of, and potentiality that is behind it. Although at the same time, it's like once you fend off all of these possibility, once you delude yourself that history is this linear line towards a certain place, that you understand the entire world, then perhaps in that sense everything is possible because you can do anything because you think you know everything. There's no ontological gap or ontological gap that you're dwelling in that she characterized as between past and future. So between tradition on one hand, which is always crumbling, and then the newness that we have to make to repair the tradition on the other hand and find a new way out. And once you close this gap between past and future, close this realm of uncertainty and possibility, then everything becomes paradoxically possible because you think that you because you think that nothing is possible or you know everything.
I think that's a very interesting idea, but I think that is exactly why, perhaps illustrates why Dostoevsky was so hesitant to say, well, let's just let everything be possible and let's get rid of the tradition. That's why he was emphasizing so much importance of Christianity, but not Christianity in the dogmatic sense, but more Christianity in the beauty sense, the beauty of Christ, which I think is fundamentally the man, or at least the core of Dostoevsky's faith.